and I would like to welcome you and thank you for participating today. Our guest is a great friend, family man, father, and entrepreneur, Jonathan Jackson. He's the president of Noble Charter Air, and he's here to talk to you about entrepreneurship and actual expectations versus reality. So let's hear Jonathan's experience.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Anna. So, yeah, I was talking with Anna about what we can talk about, what I can discuss, and who the audience was, and how I can help guide you guys. I'm not your age, but I'm a little bit close to it. I would like to imagine sometimes. So, what I wanted to talk to you about was expectations versus reality. So, I read a lot online and a lot of articles, a lot of books that kind of gave you, and also on TV, you know, what the expectations are, you know, what you can expect, you know, oh, you're going to make tons of money, or you're going to be working 20 hours a day and get 4 hours of sleep, and so on and so forth. But as I went through the path for 3 years, I kind of understood what was reality versus what I could expect. And I wanted to help other people understand what it is that you can expect, and the majority of reality versus, you know, what people tell you you're going to expect. So it was a lot of questions that ran through my head that I had to fight and battle, because what I was hearing was not what I was doing. So it made it a lot more difficult for me to hold myself to a standard, because what I was hearing, what I was seeing wasn't what I was doing. So it made me feel like I wasn't producing, or I wasn't ever going to meet the goals or achieve what it is that I set out to do, whether it was a product or a service or whatever it ended up being. So expectations, what we hear or read about, entrepreneurship and starting a business, what the reality of that is compared to the, you know, realities that we encounter on the different paths that we take, and then what to expect. And every path is going to be different, but plan to expect different things. I'm going to show you kind of what it is, what Noble Air Charter does. It's a short video that we did for a commercial for Fox Sports, and it was filmed here in the last month. So it'll kind of give you an idea of our company, what it is that we do, our airplanes, and the people that work for us. So I'll play this next. And hopefully you all can hear it.
Every year, Noble Air Charter flies over 20,000 outdoorsmen and families just like you, economically, to over 300 Bahamian and Florida destinations. Noble Air Charter makes a substantial investment improving booking and aircraft route planning to create the most affordable and economical flight possible. And tomorrow, Noble Air's team will rise to the challenge to raise the bar yet again. Every year.
So that is kind of a commercial that we did. We have 4 aircraft. We fly mostly to the Bahamas. I don't know if you guys could hear it or not, but we fly mostly to the Bahamas, business travel, usually within the state of Florida. And we partnered up with Fox Sports and the Florida Insider Fishing Report, because a lot of people that go to the Bahamas, that's what they do, is they fish. So to see myself, April 26th was a marker of a year that we had this company. So to see from a year ago to now that we had a commercial that's produced on Fox Sports, it's quite an accomplishment for our team and everybody here within Noble Air. So I'm very proud of that, very proud of our people, and I'll go into how I got here and why, and what the expectations or the reality is versus what you can expect. So my background is, I went to, starting from the top, University of Georgia, Master's in Business. I did that in 2017. I completed that after completing my Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics from Embry-Riddle. I started out in a small trade school for my aircraft and power plant license. From there, I went to work. I took more of a non-traditional route. I went to go work for a company before actually achieving my bachelor's degree. I had a a trade school license for the airframe and power plant, which helped me get into the workforce. And this was during a time that, as you can see, it was in 2006. We were on the verge of kind of the economic boom versus the economic collapse. So it was a good decision for me to go into the business workforce instead of going into school, because I didn't know it would be on the other side once I left. So I got awarded the maintenance track scholarship through the NBAA, which is the National Business Aviation Association. Went down to Savannah, did my training and all that stuff, and I got hired on with Gulfstream. And then from there, I was a mechanic, worked project manager, and then went to Delta Airlines, worked as them for a mechanic, and then went up to program manager, running about 20 lines of heavy maintenance checks in South America. And then now 2019 and present is now I've got the joy of running Noble Air. So personal wise, I'm married for 11 years in October of this year. I got 3 kids, 7, 5, and 3. I got 2 dogs, which are the wildest. I don't even know how old they are, but they are all actually joining us right now. They're our support. So you'll see through this that you need somebody to support you throughout everything that you do, and family and friends are always somebody that are always there to support you. You just got to find the right ones. So thanks to Laura and the family for supporting us. I grew up in Georgia, moved to Miami in 2019 when I purchased the company Noble Air. All right, now to the fun stuff. So what to expect. So as far as the background of all you guys, I don't know if you have ambitions to create a product, to create software, to create a service, but there's differences between the three. The expectation of starting up a company is extremely difficult, especially if you don't have any experience working in the corporate world. Some of the best inventions and best ideas come from people that work for other companies. They're in the company, they know that they can do something better, they know that they can improve on a product, they can improve on a service. And there's too much, it's what we like to call it in Delta, when I worked for Delta, was a large ship with a small rudder. So you were that small rudder that had all the great ideas and all the ambition and all the drive to make something different within the company, but you knew you wouldn't be able to do it because of all the barriers that were ahead of you within a company like this at Delta. So when I say big company A, yes, you have the great idea, right? You have the idea that you know that, hey, these guys in supplier ops, they like my idea. These guys in marketing, they like my idea. They like my approach to what it is to fix this. However, you have to realize that sometimes that these people that you rely on that agree with your product or your service may not be there by the time that product or service is implemented. So the initiatives of the company could change year by year as you're working hard at night, as you're trying to juggle 2 jobs, you're trying to figure out what's the best way to offer the service or product to the company that you work for or the industry that you work for. At the same time, you're also trying to, massage the relationships that you have within the company that you're trying to propose this idea to. The thing that I ran into was that I had the idea of running parts overnight for Delta Airlines. And that idea came from being on a conference call with the different outside stations that were in we had stations in North America, South America, Asia, and even on the West Coast of the United States, trying to get parts there. So my idea was to take a smaller airplane that was cheaper, that I could bring parts from point A to point B that was the size of the shoebox. I didn't need this great big ginormous jet to bring, a circuit breaker or a light from Atlanta to Nashville, Tennessee for $25,000. I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. But going back to it, like I said, a large ship with a small rudder, it's hard to change those kind of things because they have the barriers to entry. So you can't go on with a large company and say that, oh, I got this great product or service. I want to offer it to you guys, but you can't do it because it's a conflict of interest because you work for the company. So the company can't hire you to do that product or service because you work for the company. It's a conflict of interest. So when you approach the expectation that the big company likes your idea or your product or your service, you can't expect that that's going to carry you through for your full venture of your idea or your product, your service, your solution to whatever problem it is. So my suggestion to you with that is to, yes, use it as a driver or as a motivation to get you going in the direction that you want to get to, but don't silo yourself to where you have to focus on this one company or this one industry. Make it broad enough, if you can, to where you can, if something were to happen, for example, in this industry that you're in right now, you at least have something that you can jump over to or sideline to. With that, you have the startup versus existing company. I fought with so much. I wanted to start my own little airline, right? And I thought that, you know, the macho way to do it was to make a startup from the ground up, you know, no help, no nothing, didn't have anything existing, nothing like that. I thought that was the best way to do it. You know, I had something to share with other entrepreneurs. I could tell them about, you know, what hurdles and stuff I went through and stuff like that. I had things that I could share with people. But in reality, after I got a year and a half into it, I realized that maybe there is an opportunity within existing companies that are out there in the world. Maybe there's somebody that wants to retire, or they're just tired of the business. Maybe they're not producing any revenue. They have a hard time keeping employees, whatever the situation may be. But if it's at least in some sort of direction of where you want to go with the product or service that you want to do, look at existing companies, because you have access to capital through outside sources that I'll touch on a little bit later. But don't get so tied up in, I have to start my own business. It has to be mine. I have to create the name. I have to create the business. I have to do my own business cards, stuff like that. Don't get caught up in all that stuff. Know that, understand what it is that you want to do, what you love to do, and go after that. That's what you need to go after. And if there's an existing business that's already been through a lot of the hurdles of the startup, sometimes that's the best route to go, because you don't have to experience all the mistakes and stuff and some of the financial burdens that they had to do at the beginning phases. So that's another expectation versus reality. Don't always focus on just starting your own company. Look at what existing companies are out there that you can actually improve upon. Another one is raising venture capital versus other avenues of source. I got into this thing thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go in there. I got my presentation ready. I'm going to raise some super serious capital, right? I'm going to go in front of these guys. I was Googling all these venture capital firms, see who could buy into my idea. You know, I had the in with Delta and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. But when you come down to it, these guys they want proof. They want existing proof that this business is actually making money. They want to know that this idea is going to actually make money. So it was next to impossible sometimes to get in front of a venture capitalist. And when you actually learn and understand what a venture capitalist is, usually they don't come into the second, third round of funding, because what they want to do is they want that concept proven before you actually get the funding for these type of ideas or products or services before you enter into it. And there's a few different ways that you can do this, and I'll touch on it on the next slide. But that's another expectation versus reality. Don't think that, you know, you got this great product or this great service and that you'll get venture capital and seed funding and all this other stuff from these large corporations because they've got all the capital in the world. It doesn't work like that. It's extremely difficult. And even if it's IT driven, which is kind of where these venture capitalists and the investors are going towards, even there, I mean, you're talking about a huge barrier. I mean, it's just a very difficult market to get yourself into. And if you're somebody on the outside like I am with aviation, it's a high risk industry. People view aviation as high risk. They don't even want to touch it. I mean, I went through, in my funding process, I went through probably 7 or 8 banks before somebody actually gave interest to what it is that I did, but I never gave up. You just got to keep going and going and going and going. There's so many banks out there you can just go to. Another thing is that you'll start up, you'll have a good idea, you'll have a good product, you'll have a good service. And then you'll think, okay, well, I can sell equity in my business, right? I got 100% stock share holding. I can sell off equity, right? I've got, when you create a business, I think they typically give you 1,000 or 10,000 shares, something like that, at a par value of 1 cent. So when you go and you talk about selling equity, you have to be very, 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 very careful about giving away equity in your business, especially a startup. As tempting as it is, don't give it away unless you truly, truly know who that person is and truly understand what it is they can offer to your business. Because 1, it's a legal nightmare. 2, you have to work through not only, let's say, for example, a coronavirus comes around again the next round. Well, you and your business partner, if they own 20% or more, have to agree upon the funding and the obligation that you guys sign yourself up for. So not only do you have to, okay, yeah, you're selling equity for somebody to provide a service to you, but you have to understand that there's long-term obligations to this. It's like you're getting married. It's exactly like getting married to somebody, because you have to realize that that's what it is. So that's one thing that I fought with. Luckily, I stuck to my guns and I kept them away. As tempting as it was, especially when you have low capital, especially on the startup, it is very tempting, especially when somebody comes with industry experience and you say, wow, man, this guy they would be great. They would help get me to the next level and so on and so forth. But when you really look down into it, if you put in the time and the effort, they'll be willing to give the information up. Maybe you got to pay them, on a per hour consulting basis. You don't have to give up the company. Maybe you can give them, $500 to $1,000 to sit down with you for 2 hours. Get your questions, get your statements prepared, and then you got all the questions out there. You got everything you need answered, and then the next phase, maybe you can go back to them again. But never, 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 in my opinion, this is just my opinion, never give up equity at the very beginning, because that is yours to keep. If you have the drive and the motivation to get this thing done, keep it all to yourself, because it'll make things a lot easier later on. Another one. These come from some other entrepreneurs that I worked alongside that, I heard and I didn't agree with, but people are always working my idea. I'll go on to these guys and I'll ask them, I say, hey, so how's your business going? How you doing? And they said, oh, it's going great. I've got, I got the FAA, which is Federal Aviation Administration. They're working on the certificate, getting it moved from one facility to the other. I've got, I got a deal in with a broker to buy an airplane and stuff like that. And I said, okay, all right, good. But the true reality of it is that just because people are working on your idea doesn't mean that they have the interest in the time frame that you want. You are the leader of yourself and your idea and your goals. You are the only one that can control your destination. So don't ever, ever rely on anybody else to make sure that you reach your goals. Always make sure that you rely on them to get something completed for you, but you have to always understand what they're doing, not only because they're doing something for you, but you need to understand what they're doing so that you don't have to reach out to them next time, or maybe you can perfect it a little bit better and maybe shorten the time frame next time. But always be involved in everything that's going on with your business and your idea and everything that you have going on, because sometimes you cannot rely on other people to get your business or your product, your service off the ground. You have to always be involved. Never. A lot of people use it as their scapegoat, oh, well, so-and-so dropped the ball. They didn't, now I'm back working for the big corporations or whatever it happens to be. You control your destiny. And that doesn't mean just because somebody else is doing something for you, you have an excuse if something fails. always make sure that you are the driver of it, because that person that you're using to work on your idea, there's 1,000 others that can do the same thing. So don't rest your idea in one person. If it doesn't work, just take it to somebody else. You know, don't always rely on that one person. Another thing, I probably should have put it at the beginning part, but it's a buyout to a larger company. This is the idea that I had. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna create this big company. I'm gonna create this huge empire, and then I'm gonna sell it to Google or Amazon Prime or wherever, you know, just get it off my hands. I'm gonna make billions and billions and billions of dollars. That doesn't happen like that. There's not people lined up waiting to buy your business. There's a tons of businesses. Once you get into it, you do your own market and competitive analysis, you'll realize how many people are in this industry. You got 600,000, I think, 600,000 plus public companies on the market. Just the companies that applied, there's 38, I don't know, there's something crazy like 30 million small businesses or something in the US. And there's only 600,000 public companies on tradable. So you have to realize that we're small fish in a big pond. So you have to separate yourself, and don't get into the entrepreneurship or the business world hoping that somebody's going to buy you out. Get into it because you love what you do, or the industry that you're in, or the fact that you like creating or fixing things. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you like the product or the service that you're giving, but you like fixing things. You like coming into companies, you like doing things, you like solving problems. Okay. So my point is don't get into it because you think you're going to get bought out by a big business, because it's very, very difficult. That goes into the lots of money thing. You know, as a business owner, the first thing that I do, I didn't realize this, was, you know, I went from making a lot of money at Delta, 6 figures, and then went down to, you know, making nothing. But I enjoy what I do. I enjoy being around, solving problems, controlling my day, controlling, you know, what it is that I have to do, helping other people, being a leader to the people that are already here, creating a good organization that we can grow and build a good foundation for the next person. And that's kind of what I like doing. Now, eventually, yes, once you sell a business, it's no different than a retirement account. The business is your retirement account. Once you build a good business, you have the equity in the business and the assets and the value, the goodwill, all that stuff. Everything. You might not be taking it out on a paycheck, but you're building it into the empire that you're kind of trying to create. And that's the goal of it. Yeah, you're free to take money in and out as you wish, you know, but you got to be careful with it. You know, you got to make sure that, you know, what you take out is enough, and what you put in is enough too. I touched on this already, selling equity in the business. One fear I had was that I never led people in Delta. I never led people. I never had any direct reports in Gulfstream. I didn't have any direct reports in Delta. And I did that for 14 years. I was an indirect leader. I had people that, you know, I felt that I provided guidance to and reliance upon. But that was one of the biggest fears that I had, was I feel like I'm a good leader, but I don't know. I have no proof of it because I had no direct reports. So the expectation, you know, that you may have is that I am a good leader. I'm like the best leader in the world. I mean, I know I can do it, you know. But the reality of it is that even though that you've led maybe in a small group or had direct reports, whether it's 2 or 100 or 50, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a good leader. You have to be able to be a good follower before you're a good leader. So my suggestion is always understand. And people always told me, oh, go work for a charter company, make sure that it is what you want to do. Well, no, I know the industry is what I want to do. I know aviation is what I want to do. I don't necessarily have to go work for a charter company to go understand that I want to go buy a charter company. I know it's aviation, it's airplanes. I mean, it's transportation, it's moving people from one place to another. It's the same thing, whether it's big airplanes, small airplanes, boats, kayaks, whatever, you know, who knows? So just because you haven't led before doesn't mean you're not going to be a good leader. I learn every day with the folks that we have here. We have about 12 employees. I learn every day with these guys, especially during this time frame. You realize, you know, the hardest thing to do, and I haven't even owned the company for a year, is to tell people that, you know, I got to drop you down to part-time. You know, I can't, the thing that I could have heard as somebody working for somebody, but it's also a way for you to kind of understand, you know, what it takes to be a leader. So you have to understand that there are some hard decisions that come with being a leader. You know, you'll learn as you go. Don't worry about it. As you go through the process, as you understand, you'll learn back from your previous experiences, and you'll say, well, what experience did I have working for somebody or somebody else that that I could learn from, that, you know, that would help me get through this kind of situation. Another thing is they will teach me. So let's say, for example, that you decide to go out and buy, you know, purchase a company instead of starting one up from the ground. You'll understand that the previous owners or the previous leadership or the previous people that worked for that company, don't rely on them to teach you everything. You have to go in there, you have to ask your own questions. They're not going to sit down. They don't have a syllabus where they can go through and tell you everything that they need you to do. It's not going to happen. It's just like going to work for a small business. I mean, we're working on getting some good training programs for admin staff and pilots and, you know, other senior leaders here, but don't expect them to teach you what it is you need to know. I had to go through and read all the regulations that applied from the Federal Aviation for private air charters. And it's no small feat, and it's confusing. But read and understand it. That way, when you go to ask questions, at least you have a foundation for those questions or what it is that you need to ask. So you don't have to sit there and ask them, well, how are you able to fly for hire? You know, at least you got the baseline of those questions down. You don't have to go in and try to figure out, you know, the basics of what it is that business does. You can go in there and at least ask some somewhat intelligent questions and dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper. Let's see, what else we got here? So yeah, there's, like I said with the buyout thing, there's 600,000 plus public companies out there. 4 million of them applied for federal funding, 4 million small businesses. So, I mean, the fact that we're such a small entity in all this, and 5 companies make up 50% of the S&P 500. So you have to keep your expectations in reality, where you think you're going to do this great next Google or Apple or Amazon, or, you know, you like Steve Jobs or so on and so forth. You just do it because you love it. Do it because you want to be in control of your own destiny. Don't do it because you think that you're going to be that 6th or 4th person in the S&P 500. So I'm not sure if you guys can see this very well. It's kind of a busy slide, but this is kind of where, this is where I found from the Small Business Administration.gov. They have an advocacy group, and this kind of shows you where the typical business startup capital comes from. One of the biggest hurdles I had to come through was finding money, right? Because you can't start a business without money. There's no way, unless you have somebody to donate it to you or something. I don't know. But this is pretty direct on. Most businesses start with less than $50,000. That's a pretty good number too. If you got $50,000 in the bank, you can manage starting a business or at least acquiring one. I'll put it to you this way: if you got $50,000 and the seller of a company is willing to finance $50,000, You can buy a business for $1 million through the SBA. Now that requires you to have good credit. So always, as difficult as it can be, I've had crap credit. I've had 400 scores. I mean, I had a 400 on my score at one time, thanks to my wife. She helped me bring it up. But the thing is that you have to keep good credit. As stupid as it sounds, as dumb as it sounds, it'll help you when you go to start your business, even though that you don't think that you'll ever have to use it. Maintain that good credit. So what I'm telling you is, you've got $50,000, and the seller that you're trying to buy the business from, whether it's a software company or a real estate company, or service, if they're willing to do, which most of them are, if they got a good business, they're going to sell their finance. They're going to say, all right, that's fine. They have a little bit of skin in the game. So you can buy a $1 million business, a $1 million, if you got $50,000. That's a lengthy process. I went through it. Mine was a little bit different because it was aviation. I didn't have any real estate involved. So it's a little bit different kind of assets, but you can buy a $1 million business. That'll get you a lot. That opens up the door for a lot of businesses. But you ask, how do I get that 50,000, right? Well, that was a question that I had as well. When you get that experience and that knowledge and that understanding from the corporation that you work for, not only do you take that experience, but you also get a solid revenue source, right? So you can buy into real estate. You can buy a house, right? You can buy other types of vehicles, whether it's through money markets or however else you decide to grow your income. There's many opportunities out there for you to grow your income to make 10,000, 50,000 within a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years. And then now you have the ability to buy a $1 million business. So don't think that because you don't have, I don't have a rich uncle, I don't have a rich mom, I don't have a rich dad. I got lucky. I bought a house in 2013. We stayed in it for 5 years, I think 3 years, something like that, 3 or 5 years. We bought it at the bottom of the market, most of the bottom of the market. Then I was able to sell it. And of course, I had the temptation because I have the degrees and stuff and the student loans. I said, man, I could sell this house, get rid of all the student loans and blah, blah, blah. But no, I sold the house. Finally, I kept on to it. And I sold the house, and I took that money. I took the equity and I put it into the business. And that was kind of my lifesaver. But it took me, to get to 2013, it took me, 7 years to get to that point, to where I had, the $100,000 that I could put down on the business. So if you have patience, and I try to start numerous companies before this. I mean, software companies, macro search companies, internet, whatever, products, you name it. But this one finally stuck. So, it's always about not what you started into it, but, keep going, keep going after what it is that you want to do. And eventually it'll follow. And the same thing with the access to capital. You have to sell your idea. And if you do have somebody that may have some money, you have to be so passionate about that idea that you can sell it to them to where they're able to, friends and family are able to give you a loan, to help you support, to get you to that next step. But you need to show them what you're going to use that money for. You can't just tell them that you need $50,000. You have to explain to them why you need the $50,000 and where that next step is that it's going to take you to. So understand that you don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a rich uncle. You don't have to have a rich dad. You don't have to have a rich brother. You just have to have discipline to get yourself through 1, 2, 3 years in order to build up that $50,000 or $100,000 to be able to put towards that dream or goal that it is that you want to do. And at the same time, you're building experience. I take a lot of what I learned from Delta and Gulfstream and apply it to this small business here, because I can apply the policies and procedures to it. I can have accountability within our groups and our departments. I have, the accounting, the IT structure that I know that the big corporations have. I can give somebody a new hire a laptop, and they can work from a new laptop and a phone. They can work from anywhere in the U.S., the world, as long as they have internet connection. You couldn't do that before. But it's that experience that I got from working for the big corporations to know that, you know, in times like this, everybody that I have, the 12 people, are all connected, everybody. And it didn't take a monumental effort for us to get to that point. We started off because my experience with the big corporations got me to the knowledge and understanding that how important things were versus other things too. So the SBA has a lot of good, SBA.gov has a lot of good information as far as access to capital, what you would need in order to purchase an existing business. And they even do things for startups too. So, you know, if you have a startup and it involves, they love assets. A service industry is good, but if you don't have any assets, you got to have assets for these guys. That's the biggest thing. Whether it's airplanes, cars, you know, houses, they love land, things like that. That's what really gets them involved and engaged. And I think we're about out of time here.
We have John,
But
that's a great amount of information, and I'm actually even making notes for myself. But students, while you were presenting this information to them, they have few questions to you. So
okay.
Rolanda asking, what if you have no credit and you still want to start a business?
Well, everybody has credit, so it's a matter of whether it's good credit or bad credit. And what I would say is that I would work on, you simultaneously have to work on these ideas at the same time. You'll have to work on establishing a goal or a game plan to get your credit up. And if you do a lot of things that resolve your credit issues, whether it's late payment history, whether it's too many inquiries, whether it's you know, debt to income ratios too high, these things they can be worked out within 30 days. You can fix your credit within 6 months if you really have the drive and the ambition to do it. But you have to set out a plan. You have to plan it out, what it is that you're going to tackle first. Is it going to be the late payments? You know, is it going to be the debt to income ratio, or is it going to be, you know, the high credit card, the high credit inquiries, or is it going to be the high credit card to limit ratios? I mean, there's so many things that affect your credit. You have to figure out what it is that you want to do to tackle first, and what your ability is to tackle those items first. So if you want late payments, you know, let's say those have the biggest factor on your credit history because you ran into some issues. I haven't had any luck with it, but there's companies out there that will help you get rid of those late payments. A lot of times, what I've noticed is if I call a creditor and I tell them, hey, look, I'm going to catch everything up if you take off that late payment, sometimes that works with them. If you put it in dispute and you put it in dispute for the wrong reasons, you'll tie up the process. You never want to do that. Just work with the creditor and see if and just keep calling until you get somebody that you know that'll work with you. You know, don't always rely on the first person that you call to remove that late payment, and tell them your story, and just refine your story every time you talk to them. You know, if they say, well, we don't remove, you know, late payments because of that, well, then refine your story a little bit. Next time you call, just tell them, you know, maybe something different that maybe you didn't think of before. And then you can refine your story until you can get that late payment off. Mm-hmm. And then they'll say, okay, no problem. I'll process it through and blah, blah, blah. And then you can go on to the next one and the next one, next one, but take calls and calls and calls and calls and calls to get that stuff fixed. And then at the same time, what you can do is you can work, you know, you work on your business, because like I don't think I mentioned it before, but you're always in a waiting game. You're always waiting for somebody to do something. You're always waiting for a lawyer to get back to you on the sales contract. You're waiting for a consultant to get back to you on a specific item as far as whether you purchase this asset or you don't purchase this asset, so on and so forth. So you're always waiting on somebody. So in between that time, you can work on whatever product or service it is that you want to build or drive to. So exactly. That's what I would say would potentially help. And you know, the biggest thing is there was times where people would tell me, oh, you know, you're working, you know, Mr. Wonderful, right? you got to work 18 hours a day. You know, if you're not working 18 hours a day, you don't have a small business. You're not an entrepreneur. And that's not the case. Sometimes, especially when you're buying the companies, you're waiting on people. And there's so many times I was sitting in the office thinking to myself, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not working 18 hours? Like, I have literally nothing to do. I'm trying to think of what else I can do without spending money. And sometimes there's not even an idea. I mean, there's a lot of things I can do if I wanted to spend money. But why spend money on an airplane, buying a new interior for an airplane if I don't even own the airplane yet? You know, my goal may be to put a new interior in an airplane, but if I don't have an airplane to put it into, what's the point of me buying it? You know, maybe I can go through, you know, the different facilities to see maybe who can work on the interior the cheapest, you know, and get it turned around the quickest. You know, that's something you can do to fill your time, but don't kill yourself because you're not working 18 hours a day on the first initial process. If you're creating software like Bill Gates was, I mean, of course he's working 18 hours a day. He has nothing impeding between him writing the code. So, you know, it's a little different depending on what business you're into, but don't kill yourself because you're not working 18 hours a day at the beginning of it.
Well, what I'm hearing right now, business is not happening overnight. And even if you don't have a credit and you still have a goal of opening a business, you can work at those things at the same time because there's a lot of waiting time here. So we have
Correct.
another question. What kind of
Mhm.
traits do you like to see in your workers? And I guess that's your future intern is asking. So.
Yeah. I like the people that are self-motivated, people that are self-driven. I don't have to tell them what the next thing is that they need to do. They just know that there's something they need to do and they're going to find something to do. Now, obviously there's choice within that. So you want to make sure that they're making good choices on what it is they want to do to make sure it's productive for the company. But you have to make sure that everybody has needs and wants. But even because it's a small company, it doesn't mean that you can't put the company first. And when I worked for Delta, the only thing that we did was put Delta first. Everything was Delta, Delta, Delta. That's all we did. You know, we did it for Delta, we did it for our customers. And that's what we look for here in small companies is somebody that's going to go above and beyond for the customer, whether it's, you know, dropping their car off at the Miami International Airport location, whether it's, you know, picking up some supplies from Home Depot because they want to put them on their empty leg to go over to the Bahamas so they can keep rebuilding their house in Abacos. I'm not saying spend their own money, but I'm saying just take the time out of your day. You take the corporate cash, you go over there, you buy the stuff for them. But it's things like that. People that want to do things for the company and the customers is what I look for, and people that are self-driven and motivated, and you know, that have a true passion for the business.
Thank you, Jonathan. There are some more questions. That was a question from Madalena, and thank you for a great question. We have another question. If you could give your younger self an advice, what would it be?
That's a good
That's a
question.
good question, too.
If I had to give my younger self advice, I would say to get my education done first and then join the workforce. I think that I took the non-traditional route. I went through the school of hard knocks, as they say. I went through it the tough way. I think if I would have learned up front, it would have made things a little bit easier for me on the back end. I'm 14 years into the aviation business. If I had the education up front to know, with the Bachelor of Science from Aeronautics to the master's degree from Embry-Riddle, if I would have had all that up front, I think it would have helped me have a little bit more business maturity in order to maybe launch something a little bit sooner. Now, I'm not saying that that's possible for everybody, because I couldn't afford to go to school at first through, 6 years of school. I had to go and work just because of, everything that I had to go through. So if I had the ability to give myself any sort of advice, one, it would be take really good care of your credit. And to go back on that, take really good care of your credit, because as a younger person, I thought, oh, I can fix it. You know, I got 40, 50 years to fix it. But in reality, when it's time for you to go and you're ready to go, you got that idea, you got that business, and your credit sucks, you're stuck. You know, you're kind of, your hands are strapped behind your back and you have nothing to really help. I mean, nothing immediate, at least. It's a 6 month to a year process to help fix that kind of issue, but it's to save money, have good credit, and to get your education done. You know, those are the three things: good credit, very good frugal financials where you know how to save money, you know how to spend money, and then maintaining a good credit. You know, don't take every credit card application that comes through your mailbox thinking that they singled you out because they think that you're the best. They want you, you know, they want your name on your card, not your name on their card, you know. So just understand that they're targeting a lot of people in your age group. They targeted me. I went through it. I bought jet skis and all kinds of crazy stuff. It was dumb. You know, I should have never done that, but I did it because I felt like they were giving it to me, like it was mine, you know, like, oh, wow, thank you. But it's not the case. So that's the advice I would give to my younger self. Yeah.
That's a great advice, because one of the pillars of junior achievement is financial literacy, and that's confirms that it's important. We have another question. We could have two more. It says, I don't know who the question comes from iPhone, but I just started my online business, but I don't have many customers. Is there advice you can give me, please? And thank you.
Yes. So one of the main things that I would say with an online business is that you can do, and you can do this yourself, is increase your search engine optimization. So there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that can help you increase the kind of the behind the scenes stuff that'll help you promote your product or service it is that you're doing in your online business. It's going to take a lot of time for you to sit down and watch these videos and understand and read what it takes to do these kind of things, but you can do it. Anybody can do it. You can even do it on Wix, on a Wix website. You know, you can do it through there. But if you sit down and you take the time to understand what it takes to improve your search engine optimization, the SEO, and also always post new content to your website, whether it's just introducing a new product, or if it's introducing, you know, or maybe how you're coping with the new pandemic that's going on. Always post new content, and videos are great. You know, always post good solid content to your website. Keep it updated. That's how Google ranks you. And then Google also offers a lot of promotional ad credits too. So once a quarter, typically they'll send out $100 ad credit. If you're not in a heavily saturated online market, like, you know, I don't know,
web marketing
or something. I mean,
is very
web marketing is, if it's not a highly saturated market, you know, you could potentially spend $100 and be on the first page of the Google search results, you know. But if you don't, and you're in a highly saturated market, you got to find out new ways to navigate around it. A good website or a good company that I found, I don't know where it is right now, but I'll send it to Anna. It was about online marketing, and I can't remember what his name was, but he did a great job he didn't spend really anything in online and Google ads. He just always was posting new content, always videos and stuff, learning, self-help, stuff like that. So it's all the behind the scenes stuff. If you dig into search engine optimization, you'll find yourself down a rabbit hole, and you'll figure out more things than I even told you here. So that's the big thing that I would do.
We also have a question from Brianna, and it's, people always say, just start. When you want to start a business, do you think this is logical? What's your stance on just starting?
So if it's I don't know if she's still here. Is it a product or a service? You know?
Well, it's a person. Next question is from a different person. She's just talking
Okay.
in general, basically when everybody, she's saying business in general. Yeah, business in general. Everybody's giving those advices. Just go ahead and start.
There's some truth to that. Yes. Yeah. I would say you should never hear just start. You should have people telling you just stop. Like just stop. You know, that's really what you want to hear. You don't want to hear just start. You want to hear just stop, because you are the driver of your destiny or your product or your service. So people should be telling you to just stop, like it's not going to work or whatever, you know. But to just start, you have to make that decision. You know, if you really believe in it and you really want to talk about it and you really want to sell it, you have to make that decision on your own. You know, I don't know if it's a capital thing or if it's a money thing that may be holding you back a little bit. But there's a lot of things you can do without capital. One is a business plan. And I wouldn't even spend any money establishing a company or anything with the Secretary of State or anything at that moment. Just start, you know, put down what it is that your objective, what your goal is, who your competition is, you know, go through the whole business plan, make sure that you understand what it is that you do, because I have been through many business plans, and I'll tell you, by the time I get to the competitive analysis part, I'm like, oh man, there's so many of these out here, you know. The first thing you do, and it's the most demoralizing thing to do, but you have to do it, is Google what it is that you want to do. That'll give you the instant idea of whether or not it's going to work or not.
If someone has already done it before.
Yeah, if you have a hard time searching for it, that could be a good thing, you know. If you search in, you know, one of the things I was doing was crowdsourcing for stocks for startup companies, and it was creating a meta search, you know, website for new entrant startups, so that the SEC would allow us to, you know, people could search upon, you know, what type of industries they wanted to invest in and things like that. They didn't have to be, you know, a Merrill Lynch or Charles Schwab or anything like that. They could be an individual as long as they had, you know, so many assets. Well, as soon as I searched that in Google, I didn't have very many hits, you know, it's kind of here or there, but it was enough to say, okay, this is kind of a good idea. Let me go ahead and push forward with it, because there may have been one or two companies out there. But just because there's a lot doesn't mean that there's any reason for you to be scared to go one way or the other, you know. So definitely Google it, understand it, go through the business plan, make sure that you understand what it is that you're looking to do. And business plans are free. You just write them down, you do them. I mean, there's no cost to it, so you might as well go through it. I went through many of them, and a lot of times as I went through them, they led me in a different direction, because I was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't think this is it, you know. So
just start is a good advice, because you gotta start somewhere if you believe you want, but it has to come from you. You need to know that you want that business or any other one.
Yes, you have to start somewhere. Yeah.
We have another question. It says, how do you look on people who say your business is not going anywhere? Do something better. I guess students are asking for affirmation and inspiration. Like, what would you think about that person who would tell you it's not good enough? Did you have that? Did you ever experience that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, of course. Yeah. You gotta go with your gut. You know, you got to know what it is that you want to do. And if it's what you want to do and you're very, very passionate about it, people will get on board. You have to be very, very passionate. You have to love what it is. You don't just love entrepreneurship and come up with an idea. Love what it is that you want to give to the people, you know, the service or the product or whatever it is. these people that tell you that, maybe you get something better or whatever. Okay, that's fine. But you need to you need to ask them to be more specific, because at this moment, they're not being very specific. They're just kind of generalizing what it is they disliked about something. But maybe you can refine that question to help, Chris, help facilitate what it is that their question actually is. What don't you like? Ask them more questions. You always ask them more questions. Well, what do I need to? What is something better? Like, what's wrong with this product or service that I'm offering? Is there something within this industry or this variable that you can tell me that I can do something better? Because we can always take. Nice, Chris.
You're
Thanks,
the
man.
best.
Yeah, we can always take advice from other people, but a lot of times people don't know how to put it in words. So you have to extract it from them to get their ideas on what could possibly make your idea better. But don't ever take that as, especially from one person, as a way to demoralize, what it is that you're interested in or what your goals are.
So in everyday's life, you advise to establish a meaningful dialogues that you could be able to learn from.
Correct.
All right. Is there any other questions, guys? Jonathan, great presentation. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It was great to have you. I feel students are engaged, a lot of nice questions, and we'll be continuing our discussion about summer youth employment. And students, don't forget to log in if you have not logged in.
Sign in. I'm going to send the survey in the chat box. And then also remember to sign up for mock interviews and graduations this Friday at 2. So we're going to send you guys the invite for that as well. Good?
And
thank
everybody
you all.
saying
Thank you,
Jonathan, and
yes.
thank you, students, for
Thank you.
being here today. Thank you so much. It was great.